Okay, honored to have two guys on here. I've wanted to have on for a while, truckers and about the trucking industry. Gord Magill and Shannon Everett. Gord, what is you've written a bunch of articles, great pieces on the Blaze and other places. It's kind of shocking when I first read them. Lay out, what is this problem we have in the United States? I thought all truckers in the U.S. were United States citizens, had driver's license. If you were driving big rigs, need additional licenses, you got licensed. But I thought all the truckers were all American citizens. Is that not correct?
You would think, sir, but unfortunately, forces have been at work to try and drive down the American truckers' wages. And there's been some strange policy decisions on the part of both the Obama administration and the Biden administration during COVID, which have resulted in way more CDLs being issued. And my colleague Shannon can explain what's going on there. In 2021, this America's Trucking Workforce Trucking Action Plan came out of the Biden administration, claiming that there was a truck driver shortage, which is a lie. There's never been a truck driver shortage. And in it, they said that rates, drivers' wages were going up 7 to 12%, and they didn't think that the market was catching up enough. So they implemented this plan to cut red tape and streamline the issue of CDLs. But the problem is what that streamlining and red tape cutting looked like, and Shannon can speak to that.
Shannon, you are head of the American Truckers United. Can you tell us what that organization is?
Yes, sir. I've been in the industry for over 25 years, and in 2019, I had to lay off over 450 truck drivers, American truck drivers, because my company was having to compete with foreign commercial driver's licenses. And so our competition was predominantly using non-American truck drivers. And so when I laid those guys off, I went on this, I started lobbying some of our federal legislators saying, hey, this isn't right. We need to protect these American jobs. How is it these guys can come in here on these foreign commercial driver's licenses and replace our American workers? And I didn't get any support from the Trucking Association. I didn't get any support from our legislators because they didn't want to go against the Trucking Association. And so I put that issue down. But in 2024, there was a crash, and it made national headlines, and it was the crash of Scott Miller. And Scott Miller was from Colorado, and the driver who hit him was operating on a Mexican commercial driver's license. The guy had been deported 16 times, was under deportation orders at the time that he hit and killed Scott. Scott Miller was a fellow truck driver, and I felt the Lord call on me at that point, hey, your industry experience and knowledge of the issues with cross-border shipments makes you the perfect guy to step in and take on this issue. And so I answered that call, and I called a friend of mine and said, hey, we don't have an association that's talking about the effects of this rampant immigration on the trucking industry. We don't have an association talking about how it's affecting public safety and national security. So he and I decided to start our own association in 2024 called American Truckers United to fill that gap and to speak up for the American truck driver, for the American trucking companies, and for the motoring public.
Hang on, because I think people's heads are going to blow. Are you telling me that they allow folks that are not citizens of this country to come in and compete with American citizens as truck drivers in the United States of America?
Steve, I get that same response from everyone I talk to. The public is vastly unaware that our highways are completely overrun right now with truck drivers operating on foreign commercial driver's licenses and what are now called non-domiciled CDLs, where our state DMVs are now issuing U.S. commercial driver's licenses to non-citizens. And our American truck drivers are now being replaced because they can't compete with this new workforce.
Well, are they arguing that there's a lack of truckers, and to make sure that we keep the logistics and the cost of the logistics within some sort of bandwidth that they have to import? Are you the H-1B visas essentially of the trucking industry?
That's who we've aligned ourselves with. It seems to be that like we're all singing the same song on this issue, but essentially, yes. So they claim that there's a driver shortage. Mathematically, if you look at the number of CDLs that's published widely on the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration website, it says that we have over 6 million United States commercial driver's licenses right now. If you go look at the main American Trucking Association's website, they say there's only about 3 million to 3.5 million trucking jobs to fill. So mathematically, we have the qualified people with the credentials to fill the jobs, but yet nobody wants to be a truck driver. And so what we're telling everyone today, and the message that we're bringing to everyone, is the reason no one wants to be a truck driver anymore is because the culture has completely shifted, because we were unable to outsource the trucks because they're not factories. So instead, what they've done is they have insourced all of the replacements for the American truck driver. And so the American truck driver is now having to compete with third world countries where guys are willing to live in their trucks. They never have to go home. Their families are mostly abroad. They're not even here. And they're willing to work for a third less than what the American truck driver does. It gets even worse because they're changing the culture in the industry so much that at shippers, for example, their restroom cultures or break cultures and all that stuff is different. And so their standards and their practices in the bathrooms or in the facilities at the shippers and receivers are vastly different than American truck drivers. And so we're hearing from a lot of drivers where shippers are now just completely closing down the restrooms and not allowing drivers to use them because of the problems that they're having with maintaining them. And so not only are drivers being paid less, not only are they being replaced, and we've had over 100,000 trucking companies go out of business in the last 2 years, and the mainstream media is not even talking about this. We have a crisis right now in the American trucking industry, and everybody's saying, well, it's a freight recession, and what we're saying is, no, it's artificial supply that has been pumped in and is pushing the American truck driver out and bringing all these guys in. And so it's really an unfathomable situation for the American truck driver in the future of the industry as we know it. The trucking industry that we all have today is vastly different than the one we had just 10 years ago.
Between the Teamsters and yourself and others that represent truckers, you would seem that you would have the political muscle in D.C. to thwart this. Who is driving this? What interest group is driving? Because this just didn't happen, right? So how did this come about, particularly over the last 20, 25 years? How did we end up with a situation where we have so many foreign drivers? Who drove that? Who was the, no pun intended, who was the, what's the instigator of this action?
Well, there's a lot of that, sir. And it's funny you mentioned the Teamsters. They only represent now about 5% of truck drivers, and in a very particular part of the market. What's driving this is the same as what's driving a lot of other things, is greed. And because the American Trucking Association, when you hear that name, you think, oh, they represent truckers. They are a corporate lobby group who represent the interests of mega carriers, and they have had the ear of everybody in Congress and administrations for decades now, and they just keep saying the same thing. There's a shortage of truck drivers. There's a shortage of truck drivers. There's not. The ATA's own report on this in 2019, they admitted that there was actually 10 million active CDLs. What they don't want to do is change the industry or pay truckers more or do anything to solve the retention problem. And what they're doing is they're backfilling that now. They used to beg the government for money to pay for their truck driving schools. It was a sort of system of stealth corporate welfare that they masked as a jobs program, right? And it just kept the churn going. And now what they're doing is they're bringing in this in-source labor from other countries. In 2016, the FMCSA waived enforcement of English language requirements for a CDL, so they can no longer place those drivers out of service. So it opens up this loophole, and now we have all these guys.
Hang on, slow down. You're telling me a foreign driver can get a commercial driver's license and actually drive freight in big rigs around the country and does not have to know how to speak English?
That's correct, sir. They waived that in 2016. They stopped enforcing it, and we're seeing the results of this. There was a horrific crash in Austin, Texas a few weeks ago, and this gentleman barely spoke any English. He was found to have multiple hours of service violations. It's quite possible that he's part of an indentured servitude arrangement. We've seen this problem in Canada. It was reported on by the Globe and Mail, Canada's largest newspaper, in 2019, where various ethnic groups were taking advantage of work visa programs and then abusing them to bring their fellow people here to work in Canada. And this is probably going on in the United States. And these people are not properly trained. They can't speak English. They can't read the road signs. And then they're pressured to work harder. And so this guy in Austin crashed into completely stopped traffic. And it took 13 or 14, 15 vehicles till he stopped, killed an entire family. And he'd only been here for 4 months, already had a speeding ticket. And, he's working for a subcontractor for Amazon. And so when you dig into it, CBS and the Wall Street Journal have done 2 separate reports on these trucking subcontractors that Amazon uses. And since 2015, when you add it all up, these subcontractors have been involved in collisions that have killed 140 people in the United States. And nothing is being done to stop this flow of insourced labor, which allows these sort of dodgy bottom feeder trucking operations to outcompete legitimate American legacy carriers, small mom and pops, medium-sized companies, folks like Shannon works with in Arkansas, and we're just being completely undercut by this insourcing program.
Shannon, to Gord's point, is demonstrably, is there data out there that shows that these foreign drivers are less safe drivers or cause more accidents or have more problems on the road than American drivers?
We're having trouble. Nobody's reporting the immigration status or the residency status of a truck driver when he has an accident. So we can't get down to that level yet. I believe that we need a task force to go investigate this across the United States to better understand that and to report that and to have a requirement where that's in the crash reports. But what we do know is that the number of fatal truck crashes and the number of injuries has risen quite a bit over the last several years. I think it's up 79% in the last 10 years, up until 2022. And so we actually did a graph, and we've got a chart on our website at americantruckers.com /crash data, where you can see that we had a consistent number of injuries and fatalities in the trucking industry up until that 2016 period that Gord had described, when they issued the memorandum ordering officers to no longer put a truck out of service for failing to meet the English proficiency requirement. And after that point, the number of fatalities starts climbing and continues to climb year after year after year, and then it takes another significant step up in 2021 when the non-domicile commercial driver's licenses started to be issued. So we are making the argument that we believe that the only major policy changes that we've seen that could have led to more crashes was the removal of the English language proficiency and was the issuance of these non-domicile commercial driver's licenses, because in the last 10 years, during that time, we've also rolled out a tighter regulations on hours of service regulations for our truck drivers. We now have mandated e-log systems that have to be in their trucks. Most all of your American trucking companies are investing in collision mitigation systems and lane departure warning systems. And so the American truck driver is doing their part. They're investing in technology. They're trying to pay drivers more, but we're having to compete. So this ecosystem is highly regulated, doing everything right, and actually getting safer. But now we have this new ecosystem of drivers who has no regard for any of that. They're coming in here and they're putting American truck drivers and they're putting American trucking companies out of business. And we believe that they're responsible for this rapid increase that we've seen in fatalities across the highways. And we're actually seeing that. We're trying to track on Twitter, on our Twitter account, ATU Truckers. We're monitoring all these major crashes, and we had a rash of major collisions here in the months of February and March, and almost all these major crashes just keep coming back. As we investigate and we start asking questions, we find out, here's another non-domicile commercial driver's license. Here's another guy that can't speak English. And so it's a huge problem in the industry.
Shannon, hang on for a second. Shannon Everett from American Truckers United. Gord Magill, a writer about this and a trucker. So Shannon Everett, what's the solution here? I can already tell in the chat room, people are outraged. They didn't know we had, my God, we thought we had a problem in the apartheid state of Silicon Valley. Just remember, these organizations, institutions could care less if you're a U.S. citizen. They could care less if your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents fought for this country, helped build this country. They don't care. And I don't care if you're white, black, anything. I don't care what your ethnicity is. I do not care what your religion is. If you're a United States citizen and you've been here for a couple generations, in the modern time, the global corporatists, the lords of easy money on Wall Street, and the apartheid rulers, oligarchs in Silicon Valley do not care about the sacrifice of your family. They don't. What the hell you think they're hurdling so fast for artificial intelligence and chipping everybody? They don't care about human beings to begin with. Howard Lucknick's out there talking about the robots. No, stop with the robots, dude. In fact, I got a solution. Go back to commerce and do commerce. Do not go on media. So Shannon Everett, what is the solution here, sir? Since people say you got me all worked up on a Tuesday afternoon, sir.
Well, good. You keep me worked up watching your show. So we fired the first shot back at them in Arkansas. We found a state representative here by the name of Wayne Long, and a state senator, John Payton, filed House Bill 1569, which was written. It was the Secure Roads and Safe Trucking Act. And it was written to require all truck drivers to read and speak the English language. It was written to close the loopholes for non-domicile commercial driver's license, and to close the loopholes for the foreign commercial driver's license, and to create felony code for non-citizens that cause injuries and fatalities on our highways. Unfortunately, because of political games and shenanigans here in the state of Arkansas, we never even got to present that bill to the committee. The Trucking Association put forward another bill, HB 1745, which addressed none of those issues that we just brought up directly. All of those issues are still allowed on Arkansas highways. The one thing that it did do in the 11th hour was they added English proficiency. They put a fine in HB 1745 so that a driver is now fined $500 if he's caught unable to read and speak English, but they still let him go. So an officer's going to pull him over, they're going to write him a ticket for $500 and say, okay, but now you can carry on your way. The whole purpose of the English proficiency law is that he's an imminent hazard to the motoring public, so he should be taken out of service and removed from the truck, or the truck impounded. And that's what we were trying to do with House Bill 1569. And so there's a lot of talk out there right now that it's a big win in Arkansas because we've got an English proficiency state law now, but it's a fine, and it's not protecting the citizens because it's not getting the driver off the road. And look, if you've got a foreign driver here on a foreign commercial driver's license that you can't properly identify, how are you going to hold him accountable to a fine? We've got drivers in the United States right now operating on non-domicile commercial driver's licenses with no names on them. I asked Gord to text you a copy of a CDL right now that has no name given. And so it literally has the guy's first name. He has no no last name. In some states are now putting an acronym, first name unknown, or FNU, on the license. They don't know the birth date, so the birth date's generic. It just says 1/1 of some made-up year. I mean, it's complete lawlessness. And so how are you going to hold somebody accountable when you don't even know who they are? And so that's what we try to do in the state level. We didn't get anywhere with it, so we need a federal solution. And so we wrote a letter to Secretary of Transportation Duffy just last week, sent it to him on Friday, asking him to rescind the 2016 FMCSA memo that we explained to you, asking him to revoke and ban these non-domiciled CDLs that are being issued to non-citizens who we don't know who the people are. We think that is a national security risk. We believe that all these CDLs have been given to a bunch of essentially refugees who have not been properly vetted and were rushed in here over the last 4 or 5 years. We want them to put a cap or completely ban the use of foreign CDLs.
No cap. Here's the cap, 0. How about this? 0. None. You can't. This is outrageous. You can't have foreigners coming in here and taking truckers' jobs, and don't read English, don't understand English. Don't. It's outrageous. This is my point about American citizens. Whether you're in Silicon Valley or driving a truck, you shouldn't have to compete in your own nation, your own country, with foreigners. American companies should be able to compete around the world if they want, and have plants overseas to do what they want. But in this country, you shouldn't have foreign labor imported here to compete against you. This was Biden's thing about low-skilled labor. This is why we got 10 million illegal aliens up through there. And as Todd Benz has told you again, it wasn't chaos. It was so perfectly thought through. This is why we need some investigations, arrest of those people that did it. Start with Mayorkas. I don't need to see any more working with the FBI assault team. I don't care. People, this audience does not care. The top 10 FBI people, hey, if they're going to be arrested, go for it. That's fine. But that's not the priorities. The priority, this is a priority. The HB1 visas are a priority. Protecting American citizens like we protect the sovereignty of our country and the territorial integrity. Hell, Pete's got the Army lined up down the southern border. We sealed the southern border, didn't we, in 60 days? How about sealing it for the American worker?
Amen.
This is why people are angry. This is why people are frustrated. This is why there's angst. This is why 9 million people have 2 jobs. This is why credit card debt's exploding. This is why 10% of credit cards are non-performing. This is why you can't sleep at night. You got to worry. Even if you're middle class, you got a good job, you get fired in 100 days, you're done. You're 100 days from oblivion if you're in a good job and you've saved a little money. All your families in this show have been here for generation after generation after generation, and show me what you got to show for it. Because it was stolen from you by a greedy elite. And Trump is the first person in the history of this nation to come forward and say, we're going to stop that. Is it perfect? No. Is he perfect? No. Is it a lot of imperfections and all this? Yes. Does that matter? No. Because directionally, he's damn right. And the only way you're going to sort this mess out is get up in back of him and say, we got your back. Let's march forward. Because nobody in this country is going to do anything for you or give you a break. You can see that. If they had a shred of common decency, would they be shipping in people at 50% less labor in Silicon Valley to compete with people that busted their ass since they were little kids, to get the STEM degrees, to go to college, to do all the hard work in engineering, computer science? If they had a shred of decency, would they care? They do not. If you're a trucker, as hard as you work, would they have a shred of decency? They wouldn't let the world come in and compete against you? Because they don't have a shred of decency, and this has to be forced upon them. Shannon, where do we go? We got to bounce. Where do you go to get American Truckers United? More information on you and your social media, sir. We'll have you back.
Yeah, on Twitter, follow us at ATU Truckers. That's our tag on Twitter. You can also go to our website at www.americantruckers.com. Register for free. We'll keep you updated. There's a news page on our website that keeps you caught up on all the current events that are taking place. But more than anything, please just follow us on Twitter and stay current on the events.
We'll be force multipliers here. Gord Magill, your writings, where do people get your books, your social media, all of it, sir?
You can find my writing at autonomoustruckers.substack.com. I write on these issues and work with Shannon to highlight this for my readers. I write for The Blaze. I write at The American Conservative. I have numerous articles out at Newsweek. You can follow me on Twitter at Gord Magill. And yeah, I write almost exclusively on trucking issues.
Great. We will make sure we link to all of them and push them out. Guys, thank you so much for coming on and getting my blood pressure all worked up here on a Tuesday.